Hey class, and welcome to Module 2. Now before we start with Module 2, make sure that you read Chapter 22 in the book. Now, we're filming this lecture from Sydney, Australia, and we're actually at Circular Quay in downtown Sydney, right by the Sydney Harbour, where the Harbour Bridge is and the Sydney Opera House, one of that famous, iconic buildings in Sydney. I picked this spot because, well, I wanted to get a Whopper here, because what we're talking about this week connects to one of our favorite fast food chains in the United States. Now, I know what you're saying. You're getting a Whopper, you must be going to Burger King. Not exactly. We're going to be going to Hungry Jack's. Now, you may be asking yourself, is this like a Coming to America thing? Is this like the McDowell's of Australia? And incidentally, if you haven't seen Coming to America, it's a great movie. You should definitely check it out. But no, in Australia, Burger King is known as Hungry Jack's, and we're going to stop there and grab, well, whatever their local Whopper is. I saw a sign for a tropical Whopper, which is a Whopper with pineapple, which actually sounds pretty horrible, so I'm not going to get that. But they have something called the Aussie, and we're going to get that instead, and we're going to try that out and see how the Australian version of the Whopper is. Now, with that being said, the reason we're having lunch here at Hungry Jack's in Australia instead of some, fancy Australian restaurant where we get to try Australian cuisine is because this is really on point with our topic of this week's discussion and a little bit of last week's discussion. You see, Hungry Jack's was involved in a very famous lawsuit in Australia. It's a very well-known Australian lawsuit, but it's not so well-known here. So to give you a little bit of a history of Hungry Jack's and why this case is so important to today's lecture, well, see, in 1971, a young upstart fast food company in the United States called Burger King decided to expand their market into Australia. Now, interestingly enough, they discovered that the name Burger King was already a registered trademark in Australia. They couldn't call their restaurant Burger King, so they had to settle on a backup. That's how Hungry Jack's came to be. Now, Hungry Jack's was the name that they selected to operate in Australia as a Burger King. In Australia, Burger King is known as Hungry Jack's. Well, interestingly enough, this arrangement worked perfectly for many years until 1996. And in 1996, something changed. You see, the registered trademark of Burger King finally lapsed. What that basically means is Burger King could now take the name Burger King and open up restaurants called Burger King in Australia. Now, they very much wanted to do this, but they had a problem. You see, they had signed an agreement with Hungry Jack's. Hungry Jack's was their official franchisee, and only Hungry Jack's could operate as a Burger King in Australia. This was a problem for Burger King, the Burger King Corporation in the United States. You see, they really wanted to basically get all their restaurants on the same page. They wanted all their franchisees, if possible, to be called Burger King. They didn't want to be called Burger King in the United States and Hungry Jack's in Australia. So what happened is they basically had, under their franchisee agreement, Hungry Jack's was required to open up 4 new restaurants a year in Australia. Otherwise, they were in breach of their contract. And if they did not do that specific performance, and we talked about specific performance in this chapter 22, and we talked about it in the last semester as well in Business Law 1. Specific performance is a requirement. It's a requirement to do a certain act as part of the contract. So Hungry Jack's was required to open up 4 new restaurants. But here's the catch. You see, Burger King, the corporation, had the right to approve or decline these new franchisees. They had the right to basically scuttle any new restaurants, any new Hungry Jack's that were going to open up in Australia. And they elected to do just that. They basically refused to let Hungry Jack's open up any new restaurants, and then came back and said, you know what? You are in breach of our agreement. We wish to cancel the contract. And again, Chapter 22 talks about canceling the contract in the event of a breach. They wanted to cancel this contract, saying that Hungry Jack's did not fulfill their end of the bargain because they didn't open up these 4 new restaurants in Australia. The reason, of course, they didn't was because of Burger King not allowing them to, basically not approving their licensing agreement. What ended up happening as a result is Burger King started opening up Burger Kings in Australia. And again, they said that Hungry Jack's was in violation of their licensing agreement. This introduced a very important concept that we in the United States are very familiar with in the legal community, but was somewhat unheard of in Australia, and that was something we talked about in Chapter 21, something we talked about in Module 1, and that is good faith. The court in Australia found that Burger King was not acting in good faith and basically sided with Hungry Jack's, and Burger King was forced to pay their franchisee 46 million Australian dollars, or about 42 million US dollars, as a penalty for their actions, for basically not acting in good faith. It's a classic case involving good faith, which we talked about in Chapter 21, and also talking about canceling the contract and specific performance. Now, we're going to go inside and grab ourselves something to eat real quick. I think I saw a burger called the Aussie, and that sounds like a great burger to have here in Australia. So we're going to try Hungry Jack's and try their version of the Australian Whopper here in just a second, class. Well, class, I'm going to go ahead and order something here, and I got my heart set on this Aussie burger, but, you know, just looking at the menu, there's a lot of things I recognize. Definitely got some Whoppers there, and apparently grilled cheese sandwich, but, yeah, my heart's set on this Aussie burger, so let's give it a try. Yeah, I'll try the Aussie. Well, class, I'm just sitting back waiting for my food, and I won't lie, I just can't get over how much of a Coming to America vibe I'm getting from Hungry Jack's. I mean, the logo just kind of screams McDowell's to me. Here's the Tropical Whopper, and, you know, you can see why I didn't order it. I mean, I don't know, maybe it's good, but I'm not going to try it. So, good crowd here. Looking forward to this experience. Hey, class, well, I went ahead and tried the Aussie burger here. Even got its own wrapper. We're going to try and see how Australia does the Whopper here. I've got no idea what's inside. Okay, there are like red beets in my Whopper. I've never seen this before. Beets in a Whopper. Or maybe cranberry sauce. No, they're beets. Beets in a Whopper. It's going to be interesting. And a fried egg. Beets and a fried egg on a Whopper. That's what makes it an Aussie.
¿Cómo los control de cuando yo estaba en la vuelta era solamente la tita o la estudiada?
You know, this is surprising, but that's actually really good. I never would have guessed. I mean, the second I saw this, I was like, oh my goodness, Australia, what have you done? But it's actually really good. Well, once again, though, class, when we talk about Burger King versus Hungry Jack's, again, the issue that we talked about from Chapter 21 and from Module 1 is good faith. And again, that was not a legal principle that was really common in Australian cases. This is the case that really established good faith in a contract dealing, which is, again, we're talking about something from last module, but, you know, it's going to be on the midterm exam, so I want to go over that with you. Again, it was pretty obvious to the courts that Burger King was not operating in good faith with their dealings with Hungry Jack. And also, it talks about one of the seller's remedies when there is a breach of contract. Now, in Chapter 22, we're talking about sales contracts, and this was not a sales contract per se, but it was. The principle is ultimately the same, and that's that the seller, or in this case Burger King, wanted to cancel the contract, saying that there was not performance on behalf of the buyer, or in this case, the franchisee. Again, though, the failure of performance was not because of Hungry Jack's, it was because of Burger King. Basically, the seller, or the Burger King, was not acting in good faith. So again, this is not a sales contract, so it doesn't really apply to the UCC, but the principles, the legal principles, are still the same. But again, the Aussie burger, I gotta say, didn't look good at first glance, but man, they really did a pretty good job with this. So I'm gonna go ahead and finish my burger. Class, if you have any questions, be sure to email me. And again, make sure you're familiar with Chapter 22, finish your assignments for this module. We're going to catch you in Module 3 next week. So once again, class, thanks again, and we'll catch you next week for Module 3.